G'day everyone, welcome back for the fifth time. That's absolutely amazing to have your company this evening here in Australia and wherever you are in the world today. So starting off again with the obligatory marketing slides from the marketing team, who we are and what we do. For those of you who don't know, we are Sparx Systems. We produce enterprise architect and related modeling tools. We first commercially released in the year 2000, so it's been over 24 years of commercial development on the platform to date. We have over 1 million paid users worldwide, and it's used in everything from any sort of designing of complex systems that you have out there, from enterprise architects and system engineers, developers, testers, etc. We're in all sorts of industries around the world as well. More and more so these days as the world progressively gets more technologically inclined and computers and AI creeping into everything. We are right up there. As Nizam pointed out, we did start the EA Summit during the COVID lockdown, and since then we're still working in a hybrid working environment. We're in the office a couple of days a week, we're at home a couple of days a week, and we also have a lot of employees now who are spread over the country who don't have that restriction of entering the office. So today, bit of a different presentation and a bit of the same presentation as what you heard from me in the past. So we are right on the cusp of some really major and exciting software releases. So I won't be talking about the things we're going to be doing in the next 12 months. I'm going to be talking about the things that are happening right now. So the three major things right at this moment are the Enterprise Architect 17 release candidate. That's out there and available now for you. Prolaborate 5.3 has been released, and that's really cool as well. And the ProCloud Server 5.3 to go along with that. So that's in the last sort of 6 to 12 months, that's what has come out of the Sparx Systems operations from there. So I would really love to talk about primarily the release candidate today, just to give you a bit of an overview of the types of things that we have put into the software, as well as the Prolaborate release. So diving straight into it, the first and probably one of the most impactful changes that we've made is the addition of the model-based perspectives. So they are easily customized and deploy perspectives for your UI and your technologies inside an Enterprise Architect in a model-based form. So what does that mean? It means that you can have a model inside your model or a package inside your model that configures the look and feel of the UI. So what ribbons are going to be there, configures the look and feel of what technologies are available. So when you open up the perspectives list, you don't see the 150,000 technologies that Enterprise Architect supports. You see only the curated, customized views that you want to see. Why is this useful? It's useful for new people using the software who may not have grown up with it like we all have, where they jump into the platform and they're just overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that's available to them. So using the model-based perspectives on a case-by-case basis, you can trim down the UI and trim down the technology list for what they have to work with. So streamlining that process of getting them up to speed on what's happening there. So I would like to explore that in a little bit of detail. So I'm going to take this example of a model-based perspective from our application portfolio management accelerators, which ships with Enterprise Architect. It's a good use case about how someone can implement one of these things, and it looks effectively like we have on screen. So to start off with, we have up the top the security group. So in here you can define what security groups this will apply to. So if you're a member of, in this case, the application architects security group, you can have that there. You might have a developer security group. You might have a coder security group. You might have a admin security group. So one or more can be added to this security group to define who is going to be working with this. So you're working in a model with a junior team. You might have a junior set of modelers. You could put them in a junior group and then customize their experience to tailor to them. But for yourself, retain full control over all the technologies that you see. Moving from there down to the perspective area. So this is actually the name of the perspective that you see up in the top right-hand corner when you're setting your perspectives. So Enterprise Architect at the moment ships with a whole bunch of perspectives if you're a data modeler or application architect or an enterprise architect, etc., etc. So this allows you to create one of them. What's it going to say? What's it going to be called? So it could be something very specific to your organization. Inside that name, you're going to have the list of technology sets that are available. These can be ones that you create yourself, or these can be ones that you can select from the existing technology set of Enterprise Architect. In this case, we only have one, so if we want to trim it down completely, otherwise you could have many, many in there to expand it out to your personal liking. Over on the right-hand side, we have the ribbon sets. So what ribbons do we want to show or hide? So the ability to define a ribbon set has been in Enterprise Architect for quite a long time already, but this allows you to set it at the model level or model those settings for it. So in this example, we have the 4 ribbons that we want to show. So we want to show design ribbon, the layout, the specialize and publish. We don't want the coding ribbon. We don't want the other various ones there that might confuse people. So we're going to trim them out and only have these 4 ribbons. And inside those ribbons, we're only going to have the different ribbon groups. So for example, I'll only read out one. In the design ribbon, we're only going to have the ribbon groups of diagram, element, package. Everything else that would traditionally be in there will no longer show up. So again, trimming that user interface down to whatever we feel like we need. How do we get started with these? Well, Enterprise Architect ships with a bunch of model perspectives, so model snippets that you can insert at a generic nature and build up one of these things. So you can dive into the model builder area. You can read all about it when you see the volumes of helper documentation in the diagram area there that you get with the model builder. And then to implement it, you simply just hit the create model button, which, hang on, let's see if we can do this. Create model button over here, and that will just dump that subset into your package project browser, and you can start modeling from there. There are a bunch of worked examples in there, like I said previously, which specifically look at the essential architecture ones. So application portfolio management, business capability management, and technology portfolio management. You can take them directly out of Enterprise Architect, drop them in as part of those accelerators that ship with 17 and get underway. So the next thing I want to talk about is the data warehousing support in Enterprise Architect. Now, I announced this last year that we'd have support for the major data warehousing platforms to be able to model them. It's been something that's been highly requested for quite a long time. But today, I want to step through what that process looks like in one particular data warehouse. The process is very similar for all of them. So I figured if I showed one in practice, then you'll sort of get the feel on what's happening for the others. So the one I want to step through today is Amazon Redshift, primarily because I had an example environment I could access from where I was, and I'm assuming it's quite a popular one as well. So here is my Amazon Redshift with the default data, the example model, so to speak, loaded into it. So all I did was spin up a new Redshift instance, drop in the default data, and then said, okay, what do I need to do from here to start modeling this stuff inside Enterprise Architect? Now, the first thing I needed to do was create a view to generate out a DDL. So it's all file-based transactions between Enterprise Architect and these systems at the moment. So I need to get a DDL out of Redshift. So to do that, I created the DDL view that comes from the Redshift help. So you can just go in there, grab the query for that, run that query, and it will create the view for you. I think by default, Redshift exports a IPYNDB file, but because we're targeting multiple systems, we keep it in a generic way. It exports a DDL, so we have it there. Once I had created that view, I was then able to export the DDL from Redshift, and that just creates a file for me. And that file is something that's quite useful for me from the Enterprise Architect perspective. So over in Enterprise Architect now, I need to create a Redshift diagram to begin with, and that's part of the Create Diagram button. So just above the project browser, hit Create Diagram, search for Redshift, pop this thing in there. It could have been Snowflake, it could have been one of the others, in this case, using Redshift. From there, I go up to the Develop ribbon, and under the data modeling area, and select Import DDL. And that gives me an option to then find the directory of where my exported DDL came from, and then select the database type as Redshift, and then hit the import button. So once that import button's hit, then Enterprise Architect creates the tables under the Redshift package that I had over there, and that's when the modeling can begin. So from there, I can drag them onto the diagram, lay them out, give them a pretty name, and start connecting them into the rest of my data warehousing architecture diagrams. It's worth noting that each of these data warehousings comes with its own specific technology profile. So if there's anything specific that the Redshift data warehouse platform requires or needs as an attribute, then Enterprise Architect has that available from the properties window. So now these elements there can be used now in modeling efforts. Any changes to the tables that we've done there can be exported out of EA and then imported back into the Redshift to realize those changes on that system. So what do we support? Well, at the dedicated front, we have the support for Amazon Redshift, we have Azure Synapse, we have Google BigQuery, Snowflake, and Teradata. So they're all the dedicated data warehousing platforms that we support. We also support the same process for the hybrid analytical data warehousings. So Hadoop, Spark, and Couch from the Apache series, MongoDB and Pentaho. And finally, the traditional databases we also support in that manner as well. So DB2, Firebird, Access, MySQL, Oracle, Postgres, SQL, and SQL Server and SQLite. So all support in the same manner. Now, complementing the import and the modeling of the physical data warehousing items, we've actually included a data warehouse architecture model pattern set. So what they are is a whole set of resources that you may want to use while targeting your big data concerns in larger organizations with your modeling effort. So it unlocks a standardized way to model and represent concepts and elements, relationships commonly found in data warehousing systems. So things like policies, procedures, information security, data science, and a wealth of other modeling concepts that are useful to start describing the data when you are doing your data warehousing. So just a few examples to go through. So if you're working with personally identifiable information, it's a really big topic around the world at the moment. Email addresses, gender identity, phone numbers, voice prints, etc. They all need to be described in certain ways. So we've included sets of reusable icons and patterns that you can use for that. Same with things like glossary terms, many glossary terms in there that you would use for various different reasons in your large enterprise. Data principles and data protection, like your GDPR things, making sure you have a list of those that can be fulfilled and addressed with your data privacy concerns. Things like Internet of Things use cases. So how does your fridge talk to your stove, and where's the data going to be used in between that? And finally, things like data science, so charts and graphs that can be used in the data sciencing areas along with those big data elements in your data warehouse. The next topic I wanted to talk about in Enterprise Architect 17 is a build out of the time-aware modeling, specifically what we've known as timelines. So timelines allow you to finely tune your development trajectory with accurate change management. So they provide a snapshot of your diagramming efforts and how they change over time. Obviously, it works with time-aware modeling. It works for any type of modeling inside Enterprise Architect, but very specific for change management. So let's take a look at that. So I'm just going back to a previous diagram that I showed earlier that actually had the timelines window open and running. So down the bottom right-hand side here, you can see this is the timelines. When I created my diagram from my Amazon Redshift account, I did apparently 4 changes. And those 4 changes were captured as a snapshot in the timelines window. So this window will slowly populate over time as I continue my modeling efforts. So let's have a look at some of the things you can do when working with them. So the timelines window, for each of these snapshots, you can create a baseline based off them. And with baselines, it gives us a really cool ability to see visually and modelly, I guess, how these changes over time. So for here, I'm going to create a snapshot of my organizational chart. I'm just going to call it initial and add it into the timelines window. I'm going to make some changes to my diagram. You can see here that for now, I've got 3 changes listed. So let's just have a look at what those changes are. I can do that now in a visual manner by double-clicking on each of these 3 entries, and Enterprise Architect is going to pop up a diagram window to show me what that diagram looked like at that time of the snapshot. So first, if I double-click on that's my first one, then I'll double-click on the second one here, and you can see that the production and logistics element has been moved out. So that was the second option there. I'm going to make another change by adding the internal finance element, and you can see that's the third one there. So I can cycle through each of these to see how that diagram has changed in each of those areas. So if you get to the end of a modeling session, you go, oh no, I don't know where I've gone wrong, but something's gone missing, I've deleted something accidentally, where is it? Then I can go back and see that there. What I can also do is use the diff merge features of Enterprise Architect to see what has actually changed. So I can select 2 snapshots that have a baseline attached to them, and I can compare those snapshots, which opens up the snapshot comparison screen. So over here, I can see that production and logistics has changed. So that's when I moved. And then the internal finance has been added. So that's the green one there. I can now select the diagram above that where those 2 elements are and compare them to the baseline, opening up the visual diagram diff. So I can see now here in my list, my baseline diagram compare, that, okay, the production and logistics has moved. Do I want to move that back? Yes or no? The internal finance element has been created. Do I want to remove it? So for any of the changes that I've made in those snapshots, those baselines, over the period of work in a day, I can selectively roll back in a visual manner those changes that are made using the pre-existing baseline diagram compare features. So that is very, very cool when doing or streamlining your work over a period of time and actually wanting to know, what I've changed, when did I change it, how do I get it back, because I shouldn't have done that. So every change can be tracked, managed and visually and done for the session. And this snapshots diagram, the current session diagram, just continues to grow. So the example there where it's got bigger and bigger and bigger. And again, come back in, do a visual compare, and I can select the various things. Here I've got 1, 2, and 3 I want to roll back, but all the other changes I want to keep there. So selective rollback on those because I have those snapshots available. So while we're on differencing merging, another minor feature in Enterprise Architect 17 is the ability to compare packages with models across various platforms, including local files, native connections, ODBC connections, and cloud-hosted models. So if you have a baseline in your current model, you can connect Enterprise Architect to any other model you have in those various ways and do a difference and merge on that level. So you're not just constrained to your local model or just a local file. So it's easily for you to assess changes and maintain consistency across many different packages. The next feature is 17 I'd like to walk through. Seems like it shouldn't be much, but it actually is such a quality of life upgrade. It's insane. So we now have new diagram layout options and features above and beyond the grid alignment we already have, above and beyond the basic helpers we had. They've been really beefed up for version 17, and it allows you to create really pretty diagrams really easy. So we have new options for vertical spacing. So I'm moving my country codes code list here sort of up a little bit. And what it's doing is saying, oh, hang on a minute, we're detecting that the spacing here and the spacing here is the same as what you're approaching. So it highlights all these 4 areas to say your vertical spacing of this element when you drop it, it's going to be spot on with these other things that you have inside your model. It works the same on a horizontal level. So moving it to this direction, we can see that now, okay, we're lining up in the specific areas between what these have got on, what that's got on, and it's also giving us a borderline to say, okay, it's going to be even with that top section. But it can also do in both ways. So both horizontal and vertical lines at the same time to know that when I move it here, this spacing is going to be accurate, that spacing is going to be accurate, and this is going to be center aligned. So with just a flick of a mouse, I know I'm going to get quite well formatted diagrams from that perspective. It gives you the ability to see the distance between 2 elements. So if I'm moving in my element from over here and I want it to be smack bang in the middle of those 2, then Enterprise Architect will tell me for these 2 lines or these 2 sides were lined up, you are now right in the middle of those ones there. It gives me left, middle, and right alignment. So these 3 bars turn on and off as you drag your element through. When I'm getting it here, I want to line up with something up above. It goes bang, bang, bang. Your sides, middle, and right are all aligned. The element's the right size. It's going to be in the right position. This works on more complex diagrams as well. So if you have a systems engineering diagram, for example, where you have ports and parts and a few other things, then the alignment also works on them. So we've got our little guys here, say the distancing between the ports. That's what Enterprise Architect knows about. It seems to be the right way. Your 3 lines, when you're lining up ports across many different elements to get them all lined up and have quite well nice formatted systems diagrams. It works for same size. So Enterprise Architect at the moment has the diagram layout option of same height and width, which is a menu command. But to save you a couple of clicks, if you start resizing one of your elements, then Enterprise Architect will tell you when it's the same height and width as other elements around it in the diagram. And finally, it also works for multi-selected items. So my 2 elements here that I've selected, I started dragging them from the middle here down to this side. until, or sorry, the other way, from here up to there, and it's giving me the right spacing, or the center line, the right spacing horizontally, how it compares to other spacing in the model that is the same size. So it also works with multi-select items, which is quite cool. Other diagramming updates that we've done and quality of life updates is the ability to do more options with drag and drop with your diagramming. So it allows you to drag and drop a classifier onto an item flow, a trigger onto a transition in a state machine, an activity onto a state in a state machine, an operation onto a message in a sequence diagram, and a signal onto a message in a sequence diagram. So why is this important, or why is this a good quality of life? Well, for anyone who's actually done state machine modeling or item flow modeling, you know that if you need to create something that looks like this in a state machine diagram where you've got an activity that sets off a behavior, you would have had to go through 2 or 3 different menu items to get that in place, or have a dedicated window open to get that in place. Now you can simply drag that activity off the project browser straight onto the diagram. Enterprise Architect knows what you're trying to do, gives you a context option, in this case dropping the activity onto the state machine. It says, what's the behavior you want to specify this as, and then go from there. So it's just saved me probably 30 seconds worth of clicking if I didn't have the right menus open for that. The final one here, going back a slide, the final one was this one here, an element onto a connector, which is, I think, pretty cool and something that I've wanted for a very long time. So what that means, consider this logical data model. And this is probably one of the best use cases I can think of for something like this, where you're trying to normalize your data. You need to insert tables in between 2 data elements to have like a common table between them. If I wanted to insert this ordered products in between customer orders and the products item in the past, I would have had to either delete the connector between these 2 objects, so delete this guy here, or try and grab the end of it, connect it to here, then create a new connector over to that one, and hopefully I got all the information right. With Enterprise Architect 17, that is so much more easier. All I need to do now is drag the element onto the connector. I get a red highlighted line then, and the prompt to say drop element onto the connector to split the connector. And that puts the connector, or the element, directly in line. Enterprise Architect creates the new connector for me, and I don't have to do any extra work, as opposed to maybe checking the multiplicity of those connectors if I need to. But I'm not destroying the model. I'm not deleting any information when I do it. I might have deleted that connector and forgot what information was on it, and then I would have to create a new one. Now I don't have to do that. So when I release, it's just dropped on, it's inserted in between. It is fully undoable. So if I hit Control Z or go to the undo option, then that connector will move outside of that. The element will move outside of that connector. The original connector will be put back in place, and nothing more has changed. No problems there. And in this case, if I hit the L key, you can see that I have an incoming and outgoing connector on that as well. So it is actually 2 connectors there. Moving a bit outside of Enterprise Architect, I guess, is the improvements were made to the external data integration format, or the interface. So the external data integration interface has had an enhanced UI. We've enhanced the user interface of that SBPI integration window, and it gives you the seamless navigation across various external data providers and different data levels within those providers. Traditionally, or before Enterprise Architect 17, you would receive a flat file of data from your external connection, and it couldn't really handle things like nested elements or sub-packages or things like that, which it now can do. So you can link entire folder hierarchies into your SBPI interface. So a little bit about the interface, I guess, for those who haven't seen it before. It allows you to create a representation of external data elements, so from third-party tools. So, for example, JAMA or Rike or Polarian or any sort of tool like that. ServiceNow is another. Allows you to create a representation of those data elements inside Enterprise Architect if you're working with them. So these elements can be linked in with your modeling activities while keeping the data updated with any changes from that third-party tool. So you might have your IT IT architecture or your IT information sitting in ServiceNow. You can integrate Enterprise Architect with ServiceNow, collect all that information, and then represent those IT artifacts inside your modeling efforts inside Enterprise Architect, while still keeping the single source of truth for that inside that third party. So Enterprise Architect now gives you the option of having more context of that data when it's coming from that third party. We also allow you to attach images of the relevant Enterprise Architect diagrams associated with that linked data and put that back into the third party as well. So if someone's using ServiceNow saying, how is this data being used in the architecture? They can see that now with a snapshot. Alternatively, they can link to a web-based view of it. So with WebEA, and I believe Prolaborate's on the way to be a viewer from that perspective as well. We allow bulk synchronization bi-directionally each way. So if we're putting notes into the third-party system, you can do that in one big thing. If you're getting the latest update from the third-party option, you can do that in a bulk synchronize as well. So the new updates ensure that your data remains up to date across all systems in a very easy way. And what does that look like? Well, from a UI perspective, we now have a tree-based view for the SBPI interface, showing you the hierarchy of data that you can get from the different elements and different things there. The accessibility features in Enterprise Architect 17 have also been improved. So we have now improved dialogue interaction with screen readers. It now supports labels and controls where previously it didn't probably do it as well as it should have. We now have options in there that allow the screen readers to read selected items off any tree control or just tabbing through it. So quite useful for those people who are, I guess, visually impaired for that. We've also completed the VPAT survey questionnaire, etc. as well, which is quite important for a lot of organizations who want to keep up their accessibility checklist. So that controls the web content accessibility guidelines, the revised section 508, and also the EN 301-549 accessibility requirement for ICT products and services. And if your organization needs a copy of that, feel free to reach out to our sales team who will be able to provide that for you. Visual styles. So the visual style of Enterprise Architect 17 has also been given an update. We now support the Microsoft Office 2022 visual style, and you would have seen that through a lot of my screenshots that I've had this evening so far. We've also got 3 new diagram themes, which I'll show in a moment. So first off, this is the Microsoft Office 2022 visual style in black. It has become my favorite visual style of Enterprise Architect. The Office 2022 visual style will be enabled by default for anyone installing version 17. But you can turn it off and turn it back to the one that you like, and that's the last time that will ever happen. So it's a once-off change to modernize the UI, and then from there you can set it to whatever you feel like. Again, in colorful, which is a common color theme that we have. It looks quite snappy. We'll also support dark gray, white, and dark sapphire as well, which I wasn't going to go through all options for you. I'm going to leave something for you to explore the release candidate about. This is the new diagram style called Crisp. I think it looks pretty awesome with the way it has, I guess, highlighted the lines around the diagram elements, the different colors based on the type of element they are. It's probably my favorite of the three diagram styles that we have included in 17. We've also got Desert and Frost as well. So the big question on Enterprise Architect 17, when's it going to be released? Currently, it's in release candidate at the moment. So very, very soon for the full release of that one. If you are a current registered user, you do have access to version 17 now. You can download with it, have a play with it. I've been using it for quite some time now and very, very impressed with it so far. So changing tracks a bit now, looking at Prolaborate 5.4. So Prolaborate 5.4, I believe, was going to be released sometime this week. If not, it's very, very soon to be released as well. So I'd like to just touch on a few things that have come along with Prolaborate since the last release. So greater model insights. So the communication and collaboration features of Prolaborate have been greatly enhanced. This is the first major release of Prolaborate since Sparx Systems fully acquired the software earlier in the year. We were part owners and now have become full owners. And with that change, we aim on integrating Enterprise Architect with Prolaborate in a much, much more tighter form. The first step to that is the collaboration features of Enterprise Architect. You have chat and discussions inside Prolaborate, you have chat and discussions inside Enterprise Architect, and admittedly, they do have their place because one is a formal discussion of the model and one is a formal discussion between stakeholders. We plan to bring that information together so you can start seeing the decisions that some of the people made when doing the modeling in your collaboration phase. So the journals inside Enterprise Architect, journals have become quite a very powerful feature inside Enterprise Architect for discussing work being done on various things. So if you have a specific element, you have a daily journal that's associated with that, and you can see over time what thought processes have gone into that journal. So those journals here, which have traditionally been part of Enterprise Architect, are now exposed through Prolaborate, so that those reviewers can see what has gone into the creation or decision about why this element the way it is. So in this example, we have the journal of an MBSE requirement diagram with discussion review window opening showing the journal entry for today. So it documents the journey of the architectural element and the changes that has gone on to do with that. So by leveraging the power and capabilities of journals and adhering to best practices, the architecture team can significantly improve the model maturity of the architectural landscapes. So that's just a shot of Enterprise Architect journal there, and then that same journal, when you select that same water supply block in our web browser, including all the same formatting and bolding and things like that. So we've also included the discussion and review information that comes with that. So these have a bit more information in them compared to the journals, where you'll have a history of interactions between potentially different people, the different statuses of the element, how it changes through different levels of completion. So here we have a basic example of a single comment in the journal, as well as 3 status changes for that on this water supply block. So again, if we then flick back to Prolaborate, we can see that those discussions have actually come across, not journal, sorry, those discussions have come across They are in a read-only format at the moment, but it shows you what has been discussed to get the water supply block to its current position exposed through the web browser for all those people viewing it. And finally, chats. So model-based chats, very, very cool feature for bringing teams of people together in different security groups, individuals, etc., etc. Instant communication, instant linking to diagrams via chat. So if you're logged into Prolaborate with the same user as your EA user, then you can also view your chats from within that web browser. Also the same for part of chat groups. So moving forward, we'd like to make these read-write, so chatting and discussing from Prolaborate and back into Enterprise Architect and vice versa. So that'll be the next step in bringing these together even more. The next feature of Prolaborate I'd like to talk about is the integration map. So the integration map visualizes API interfaces and shows the data flow between different elements inside the model. And it gives you a really easy way to view the impact analysis and dependency views of different elements. So what does it look like? So you can see here, if I roll over each of these elements, then I get a colorful view of the relationships between these elements. So the chart presents information in a very useful for an enterprise with many business and IT applications that interact with each other to fulfill a range of business goals. So you can see what are the incoming connectors, what are the outgoing connectors, etc., etc. So it shows what an application consumes and provides, and offers a holistic view of the application's ecosystem, showing the data flow between the application dependencies, impacts, and supporting strategic planning. So it's useful for things like consumers and provider type elements, for use cases, requirements, application services, APIs as well. Who consumes an API, who supplies an API. As long as they're sort of the one type of object, then the integration map will show that there. It can also be used for strategic decision making, resource allocation, and development technology roadmaps while managing the integration risk. So you include it in your dashboards. The benefits enhance the operational efficiency and align the IT strategies with business goals, benefiting the stakeholders and other participants there. So swinging back around, back to the external data integrations, Prolaborate has been updated with the option to view where the third-party information has come from. So in Enterprise Architect, you get an icon to say, hey, this is a Jira or a ServiceNow option. That is now available inside Prolaborate. So you can see on any of your diagrams or views that you have, for example, down here, that yes, this is an object that's coming from an external source. The single source of truth is coming from that external source, and you can see that in Prolaborate now. It shows up just like that and allows you to trace to the external data source as well. So what does that mean? So if you look at an element that has one of these icons on it, in the properties section of it, you can see the link to the external data object. So in this case, JAMA, the requirements come from JAMA. I can click on this URL and we'll open up the JAMA interface to see where that has come from. So a good way of connecting those two tools and getting that cross-platform or cross-tooling gap a lot closer. And it's also available from the other properties window as well. So many different places to view that. Finally, the dashboard widgets inside Prolaborate. So dashboards were created to give you a list of different diagrams that are available to your view, but sometimes you have many different lists of different diagrams depending on what role you're having. So you can have a collection of dashboards. So specific collections of dashboards for specific groups of users. So instead of previously where you had to create multiple widgets to access multiple dashboards, you now have the option to create a dashboard of dashboards. Just allows you to dive into the different areas of Prolaborate to access your curated views in a quite an easy way, or in a more intuitive way, in a way that Prolaborate is designed to do. So reviews in Prolaborate play a very impactful role on model governance, and with the release of 5.4, you'll be able to create documents of the summary of those reviews. So if you need to share them with stakeholders in document form, then you have a little option here to create a document from that. So that document can contain status, the reason, the description, the start date, the end date, the list of items that were part of the review, where the reviewers were in part of the progress, and actually a link back to that review inside Prolaborate. So you can hand this to a stakeholder, and if they have access to Prolaborate, they can click on the link and go view it inside the Prolaborate interface if they see fit as well. And of course, if it's a document, you can download it as a PDF as well. Now, I'm quite mindful I'm coming up to about 10 minutes left. So that is almost everything that I have to share about the releases at the moment. I'd like to briefly touch on what's next for Sparx Systems. Now, where are we going from here? One of the main and immediate goals is Enterprise Architect V17S. And that will be a dedicated systems engineering version to support the SysML2 notation. SysML2 is not based off a UML backing anymore, so we need to do some significant changes to make sure that the modeling experience for people who are using SysML inside Enterprise Architect is the most purest it can be. So there'll be a version 17S coming for SysML2. What is also next? Enterprise Architect Prolaborate is something that is very, very exciting that we have coming. And if you want to know more about that, then you can join myself in Nizam tomorrow night, my time, about 2 hours from now tomorrow, to discuss all about what is Prolaborate, who's it going to impact, and how awesome is it going to be. So appreciate everyone for your time listening to me ramble on again today. Really do enjoy coming out and speaking to you guys. Over to you, Nizam.
Yeah, thank you so much. There are a number of questions. We have like 10 minutes left. We'll go through some of them, but then for everyone who have posted a question, also kindly join our Slack channel where we'll have Tom interacting with us for some time and answering queries. But let me just start with some questions. So one of the questions, there were a lot around integration. So there was questions around integration to PPC, integration with Polarion. So would you like to add a note on those?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Polarion integration currently exists. So it is an integration based through the ProCloud server as well. So that interface that you saw me demonstrate tonight can access the latest version of Polarion if that's in your ecosystem. I also believe you can sort of access it through the Polarion system as well to come back to us. But yep, no, that's there. It works. It's pretty good. I believe it's getting an update at some point as well. So was there a specific question about it, or whether it just exists or not?
Yeah, so
Because
the
it does exist.
question is whether the sync Polarion will work with V16 at the moment, like version 16.
Oh, version 16. Sorry, I missed that. So yes, yeah, Polarian integration does work and does sync with Enterprise Architect 16. You just don't, I believe, have the access to the structured, the packaged information at the moment, but that is coming.
Sure, thanks, Tom. So another question around Prolaborate. So it says, as of now, Prolaborate is part of Sparx Systems. Are there any plans to develop modeling capabilities in the Prolaborate portal, something like a light version of EA, but still keep EA for the more advanced modeling?
No plans as yet. However, there is a combination of the SaaS version of Enterprise Architects and the model-based perspectives that will allow you to develop your own light interface to Enterprise Architect. It's complicated, given the types of capabilities, and I know they ask for just a light version of basic modeling. Um, at this stage, the SaaS version with something like a model-based perspective to trim up the UI and technologies is the way we recommend you go.
That's good. Thanks. Um, And there was a question from Ashley which says around the snapshot new current session. Is that only for the duration that the EA is open? Once you close the EA and open again, the new session will start, or is that history always available?
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have actually said that, and I believe I had a note to say that. Yes, that is 100% accurate. So the snapshot is currently only available for your current session. However, if you do create the baseline and snapshot out of it, then that is persisted. So it's not going to populate your model with a lot of junk if you don't want it. But if you go to the effort to say, yes, I'd like to track my session now because I'm going to do some meaningful stuff, then that information will be kept.
Okay, thanks, Tom. There's a question around SysML v2. Is it planned in EA 17?
Yes, yeah. So we're having a dedicated version of Enterprise Architect 17, which will Enterprise Architect 17S, that will have SysML2 in it. It's in the works at the moment. It's probably still a little way off because the spec still hasn't been finalized as well. But many smart minds working very hard at Sparx Systems headquarters at the moment to get that in.
Okay, thank you. So there are a couple of questions from Eric, which were like mostly around the diagram, like some of the usability enhancements that he's expecting. It's more around, are there any improvements in the find in all diagrams functionality? And sorting and things like that. You can answer them now, or we can provide a response in the Slack as well, because they are more specific EA diagramming related questions, and Eric is wondering if there are enhancements along those lines.
Not in 17, but I'm happy to discuss ideas on what we could put in there by all means. So yeah, I'm happy to jump into Slack afterwards and sort of flesh those out.
Sure, thanks, Eric. Those questions are really valid, but if you are okay to please join a Slack channel, we can have a discussion. If not in the immediate version, Tom may circulate back to the product team as well. Um, so there's a comment about EA17's usability improvements, and it also mentions do you have any plans to add option to put connectors and SysML ports on grids? As an engineer who usually draws circuit diagrams, I find the placement of connectors and ports in EA to be too flexible. Um, I mean, again, this is a quite detailed question, and they're also looking for SysML2 support. Maybe I'll add this question. This is from Japan, so we'll add this question to Slack as well. This may require some elaborate response.
Sure. Yep. No worries.
Um, Okay, so there's going to be there are quite a number of questions as well, but as we are almost approaching the end of this session time, requesting all the participants to kindly join the Slack channel to continue the conversation. Our team has posted all these questions in the Slack channel as well. So please do join us. If not, each of these questions, we'll try to follow up and get a response and probably get back to you on those as well. But other than that, thank you so much, Tom, for the excellent session. Like, there's no one else who could give such a insightful session from a Spark Systems perspective. And thanks everyone for your attention. As I said, all the questions will be added to the Slack channel and we'll continue the discussion there. And the next session will start in 30 minutes and that'll be by our audience's favorite speaker, Gillian Adams. She's been continuously nominated as the most favorite speaker in the last 2-3 years. And she'll be talking on business architecture with Enterprise Architect, and that'll start in 30 minutes. We look forward to seeing you all there as well. And do please join us in the Slack channel. Thanks once again.